I think we can all agree that death always stings, sometimes more than others, depending on who we've lost. And the worst or the most painful losses is with family members, loved ones, a spouse, a sibling, right? So the music world has lost a very popular and at times controversial figure in the world of hip hop, with DMX passing, aka Earl Simmons of, I want to say, Yonkers, New York. So in case you haven't heard, DMX had a drug overdose, which precipitated a heart attack, and unfortunately leading to him being on life support, and ultimately the poor guy had organ failure, and that led to his passing. So regardless, I try to look at the human element of all these stories and all these events. And I liked a lot of his music. I wouldn't say I was deep into his catalog, but I liked a lot of it. And I even met him years ago when I was working in TV production. We didn't have a long conversation. It was just a short exchange. And the guy was pleasant towards me. What can I say? And as a side note, which I thought was poor taste, the New York Post, during his hospitalization, pushed an article basically doing what they do. They're looking at the so-called financial hardships he had, losing real estate, some of his other problems, and this poor guy is on life support. And, his family and his fans were like sad and very concerned. I thought that was very tasteless and poor reporting, and the absolute worst coming from journalism. And it's probably the worst example of journalism I saw. The other one was when Gayle King was interviewing Lisa Leslie about Kobe Bryant's rape allegations right after he passed last year. I just didn't think that was relevant. So a big fuck you to the New York Post. That was just shitty. I did see a video by one of the producers and collaborators that he worked with, Swiss Beats, who had a very heavy heart and said some glowing things about the departed rapper, in that what I didn't know, and I don't know how common it was for people to know, that he wasn't really about showing off and popularity and showing off material wealth. And he was, as Swiss Beat describes, a man whose troubles came from supporting others and caring for his friends and family. So, who would have ever known? But the guy did know DMX for, I want to say, upwards of around 20 years. And maybe he has a lot of insight there. I didn't know, I guess maybe his death and stress and some of his demons or his troubles were connected to overextending himself. I don't know. But what was interesting to me is that, looking back, his ascent in hip hop came a few years after Tupac died. And at the time, one of my thoughts is it seemed like DMX was filling in the void that Tupac left when he passed, in the sense that both were hardcore lyricists. Fans really loved them. They really loved their music. These weren't big men in physical stature, but they had very big personalities and some very strong opinions about a lot of things that they expressed through their music and through their interviews. Tupac was probably more of, I want to say, like a social justice warrior, more of an outwardly righteous dude. But DMX, man, the guy was deservedly successful for a long time with some bona fide hits. You can go on YouTube and check out some of his past performances, or look at his catalog on iTunes or Google. But people really reacted to the guy's persona. They loved him. I heard he had issues with his family and the law. Well, I actually saw some of that, but I had no idea that he was struggling with substance abuse at that level, largely because I'm not that deep into hip hop, and I'm not that deep of a fan, although I do know a lot about the music. Substance abuse reminds me of my mortality. It reminds me of people who've been in my life. But it just shows you, man, it doesn't matter what your level of fame or your accolades are, who's in your posse, what your last name is. Substance abuse can take you, just like it'll take a virtual nobody or somebody that people don't know. And I feel sad for his family. I think the guy had 15 or 17 children, and I think he had a wife. And of course, friends and family are missing him deeply. So, I can relate to that. I've had family members, I've had some schoolmates and close friends who've had to deal with substance abuse, whether it was alcohol or whether it was narcotics. It's not an easy thing. Just being an outsider is not an easy thing to deal with. I'm glad I don't have that burden. I do wonder how much treatment the guy was getting, and I also wonder what his support system was like. How, effective were people in trying to get him help, and how receptive he was to it. It's a hard thing to negotiate or to just endure, because everybody who has substance abuse issues they're not really receptive to it. And as family members and friends, a lot of us aren't trained or qualified to give them the appropriate level of help that a trained clinician would. So it's a very tough situation to be in. So I guess if I had to give advice, if this is somebody that you know or somebody that you're involved with, reach out to your doctor, maybe Google terms like drug addiction counseling, narcotics treatment, in-house treatment, alcohol or narcotic support. I don't know. I think, what's so sad is he was only 50, and there's plenty of help out there. It's just like that old adage, how do you lead a horse to water that doesn't want water, or who doesn't want to drink the water? I don't know, man. It's like sad. Another great artist who had I'm guessing some chemical and some emotional struggles. And then again, you just really wonder what people were doing to give that person the appropriate level of help. So I don't know. I didn't have a lot to say about this, but I did want to acknowledge the guy because, again, Black people have it rough. And yes, just like other races, we shoot ourselves in the foot. But then if you're not accustomed to seeing what addiction can do to a person and how it affects families and how it ruins lives and how it complicates people's lives, and they lose their lives or they lose their material wealth or they lose jobs. There's just so many implications. And one of the things that burned me up is it seems like sometimes this country doesn't really care about it until it affects white people, just like the heroin epidemic or the, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the term, the painkillers, like Oxycontin and all of those other classes of drug. Like, it doesn't become a priority or it doesn't become urgency unless it's affected by white people. Then people tend to get sympathetic when young white people or, middle-aged white people are impacted by that. But when you're looking at people of color through crack cocaine or whatever drugs people are on, it's not that much an issue. It becomes a thing of, oh, they need to get it together. They need to stop wasting their lives. And addiction is just simply a lot more complex than that. So that's what I got. I didn't want to stretch this too long. I said what I got to say. But again, I'm interested in hearing what your comments are and what your feedback is with narcotics and substance abuse. How has it impacted you? What's your experience been? What suggestions do you have, or what can you share to help others navigate it or get started in resolving this very, very tough situation people have? So that's it. Until next time, my friends.